Hi, my name is Audrey Kittock, and I'm from Stockton, California.
Hi, my name is Paul Tracy, and I'm from Los Angeles, California.
I love to travel. I've been traveling for my entire life, and I'm really excited to go to a country that I've never been to before.
I love traveling because you learn a lot about who you are, and you get surprised.
I have never been to China before.
I've never been to China before.
The only thing I know about Chinese culture is from what I've learned here, going to Chinese restaurants and going to Chinese festivals.
I started watching a documentary about China, and I realized how little I actually know about it and how big it is.
We will be visiting the Three Gorges on the Yangtze River, and the trip will be 12 days.
I guess what I'm looking forward to the most is seeing a completely different culture.
And just experience the world from a new perspective.
I'm trying to go with like a completely open mind and just be open to whatever comes my way.
I've seen on the computer the places that we're going, but other than that, I am just really excited for new, fresh opportunities.
I am really, really excited to go to China.
I'm super excited.
In fact, I don't even think I can wait any longer, so
I'm ready to go right now. Let's go. Right now we are on a cruise ship with tons of lights all over it, sailing down the Yangtze River, and it's a beautiful night. It's a little bit rainy. Last night we arrived in Chongqing.
This afternoon we got to explore the city. We went to downtown Chongqing. We took a gondola across the Yangtze River. Yangtze River Bridge, which is really cool. It looks like this really modern bridge with these amazing cables.
To me, it kind of looked like two needles with a thread going through it, which I thought was really, really interesting. It's definitely some bridge architecture that I've never seen before.
Along the shore, there's a lot of modern high-rises getting built.
Chongqing is set on both sides of the Yangtze River, and the city is almost literally right on the river. But it seems like every apartment building in the city has the most amazing view because it's all facing the river.
After the gondola ride, we went to this amazing Taoist temple up in the hills. And we had to climb up these crazy staircases.
Probably about a 20-minute walk up hundreds and hundreds of stairs. It was a really steep hike. We were definitely sweating by the time we got to the top.
This amazing temple, some of the things there were like 500 years old.
And when we passed one little corner, we had this amazing view of the entire city.
It feels like New York, but way bigger and way more crowded.
In the skyline, you could just see skyscrapers for miles and miles. They kind of disappeared into the fog. And then when you looked a little further into the fog, you saw more beautiful green mountains in the distance. To my surprise, the air actually smelled incredibly fresh, and it smelled really lush. It kind of felt like Hawaii in a certain sense. It's really warm and really humid. And then we got to see the Yangtze River Bridge from a completely different angle. right after the cities on each side of the river are beautiful mountains, totally lush and green, and I've heard that it's a protected area.
And it was super green. I mean, it felt like you were in Fern Gully or something. Like the trees and the foliage was just gorgeous.
So it's really cool. You get this really rich city experience, but then you take a 10-minute drive out of the city and you're in nature, and it doesn't smell like the city, it doesn't feel like the city. It's very serene and very calming, and it's really cool to have two very distinct feelings so close together. Chongqing is a very large city. It is 31,000 square miles, which is about the size of South Carolina. And amazingly, it contains over 28 million people, which is 3 times the population of New York.
Compared to Los Angeles, Chongqing is like super condensed, just building on top of building. And Los Angeles is a very flat city. There are some mountain ranges and hills. It's completely night and day. I felt much more at home here than I thought I would.
So right now we are taking a short evening cruise along the Yangtze River, preparing for our 3-day cruise starting tomorrow.
We were just enjoying the amazing view of the city, and at night all the buildings are lit up.
We sat out front on the bow of the boat and enjoyed a delicious bottle of wine that was made in China. The boat is a great place to be. We've been having a lot of fun so far. This morning we left Chongqing at around 8 a.m. and took a car ride that was a little bit over 2 hours. We left the city and entered beautiful lush forests.
Beautiful rolling hills, mountainsides, and little villages.
We went through a lot of really long tunnels. It seems like all city life just disappeared.
When we arrived at Dazu, we were totally blown away by how beautiful and
in the middle. I really connect with Avalokiteshvara because he is the male version of Kuan Yin, and Kuan Yin is the goddess of compassion. And back home on my bed, I have a little version of Kuan Yin sitting on my bedstand, always reminding me to be compassionate.
And you look at the other carvings and you see all kinds of facial expressions, and you see these demons that are being fought by different guardians and different gods. Different statues depicting different kinds of emotions and feelings. One of the carvings even talks about like parental love and how important it is for parents to love their children and how important parents are in children's lives. It was really breathtaking to see all of the intricate carvings and stonework and to know how long it must have taken these people to build these carvings.
Today, after we leave the Dazu rock carvings, we're going to drive back to the city of Chongqing, and we are going to get on our cruise ship.
It's going to take us up the Yangtze River, and I'm really stoked because I haven't been on a cruise since I was 14 years old.
It's going to be a 4-day cruise, and we're all getting really, really excited.
Last night we boarded the cruise.
This morning we woke up really early and went to the Fengdu Ghost City.
When you enter the temple, there's all of these statues, and the first group of statues are of these demons, but they're not demons as in being evil. They all have specific purposes. Like one of the demons was the demon that was in charge of taking care of children who are lost during the night.
As we walked up a bunch of steps, we entered the first gate, which separates the underworlds from the regular worlds.
And then we went into this temple that was built for the god Yama, who is the god of the underworld. The temple was originally built 1,200 years ago, and it also combines a lot of Taoism as well as Buddhism.
The Chinese believe that when people die, they have to go through this stage in order to determine whether they're going to hell or whether they're going to be reincarnated. And the god Yama is the god who makes that determination. So as we entered the second gate, we saw demons on both sides of us. All of them were pretty spooky looking, and each of them played a different role. They're not necessarily evil. Some of them are good. Some of them actually protect people. After we crossed the stage where the demons were on both sides of us, we entered the next level. On each side, there were 2 different judges, so there are 4 judges total surrounding you. And the judges help the god Yama determine whether the person was bad enough to go to hell or whether they should be reincarnated.
One of the things that really stood out was the fact that the god Yama judges people equally when they die. So it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman or rich or poor, what you do in this world is judged, and you are either punished or you're rewarded for the way you've lived your life. It's very similar to Dante's Inferno, going through the 7 gates of hell, I believe. And then after you got past the judges, you saw this golden statue of Yama.
He was painted in gold and had vibrant clothes on. He had a very stern face. He looked like someone who is really going to judge you. His eyes were very wide, and he was very serious.
I was really taken back by the main statue of Yama. I don't know, something about this statue really touched me because he was very warm and friendly. The guide was talking a lot about how he represented longevity and how a lot of people come to pray to their ancestors and to pray for a life of longevity and a life of prosperity here.
After we looked at Yama for a while, we walked around the back of the statue, and this is where Yama's wife resides. And her statue was a little bit different. She was smaller in size, and whereas Yama's face was very stern, his wife's face was very soft and very beautiful and had an expression of kindness on it.
Who was supposed to be the representative of compassion and kindness. After lunch, we got to go up to the main driver's cab where the captain and his crew basically navigate the ship through the Yangtze River.
The view that we had from the captain's quarters was very different. It was a whole panoramic view. You could see everything in front of us. There were all these different boards showing the GPS locations of where we are, and
They can see like where all the other ships are on the river, as well as where they're headed and how fast they're headed.
the captain's name was Captain Morgan, which I thought was pretty funny. Apparently, some American tourists gave him that name in the early 80s, and it just stuck. He was a really, really nice guy, was really open to all the questions we had to ask him.
The captain has been a captain for 40 years. He is the youngest captain on the Yangtze River, but he's been working the longest amount of time, and he's actually the third generation to be doing this.
So he's really seen the river and the surrounding area change a lot over the years. Since the Three Gorges Dam was built, the water levels have risen substantially. So all the cities that were once by the river's edge are now underwater.
And the people living in those older cities are now living in these more modern apartments and condominiums that are lining along the river.
They're experiencing a totally different life than they used to.
His work life is that he's on the ship 300 days out of the year, and he gets 2 months off when the ship has to do some repair work.
He does not usually captain the ship. Usually he just delegates duties to all of the people, and if there's some kind of difficult maneuver to make with the boat, or if there's an emergency, he'll step in and take charge, but he's really the person who just makes sure everything is going as planned. The crew on the ship is over 180 people.
That includes all the captains and like people working in the restaurants or cleaning the cabins.
And the boat itself can hold over 570 people.
Which is funny because right now I guess there's 400 people on the ship, but it doesn't even feel that crowded. A lot more room than you would think, I suppose, because you wouldn't expect there to be that many people on the ship right now.
It's a very relaxed feeling to be on the cruise boat. It's not as rocky as I expected it would be because we're on a river, so there are no waves.
We ended the day by going to the Precious Stone Fortress.
To get to the Precious Stone Fortress, we had to walk across a long bridge that was really shaky. And there were a lot of people on the bridge.
There was this stone wall that was built around the Precious Stone Fortress. It almost made a bowl because the Yangtze River has risen up around it. The Precious Stone Fortress was 12 stories high.
It was gorgeous Chinese architecture, and it was totally a sight to behold.
Being on the cruise on the first day, you see a lot of beautiful rolling hills and then huge mountains in the background and lots of little villages and towns that are lined along the water.
Lots of different kinds of trees, many different shades of green.
And you can see different cruise ships along the river.
It just feels like being on vacation. Everyone is very relaxed. Yeah, we've been having a great time so far. This morning we woke up early and visited the White Emperor City. Originally, the White Emperor City wasn't an island, but since the dam was built, the waters have risen and have made it an island. The White Emperor City is called the White Emperor City because it is shrouded in mist and is a very serene place, which is how the Chinese think that an emperor should be, is serene and calm. To get to the White Emperor City, we crossed a long bridge that went over the Yangtze River.
We went up this incredible staircase, and one of the things that was really cool to see were all these elder Chinese men and women walking up the stairs like it was no big deal. I mean, these people were anywhere between their early 70s to late 80s, just completely in excellent shape, going up these stairs right along with us.
It was really cool to see them doing this really intense physical activity.
We actually got to take some pictures with some of them.
When we got up to the staircase, there was a big entrance, and to the side of it,
we got to see the first of the three gorges called the Chutang Gorge. And we kind of stood out on one of the rock walls and got to check out the view from there.
The Chutang Gorge looked beautiful from this perspective. You saw giant vertical cliffs jutting out of the water that were different colors, reds and oranges. And on the tops of the cliffs, they rounded a bit and there was a lot of beautiful, lush greenery.
When we got back to the cruise ship, we got to meet Dr. Yang. He's the clinical doctor on the ship, and he practiced some of his acupuncture on us.
For me, I told him that I had digestion problems and I have a stiff hip. So he put a needle in my hip in order to move my energy through my body. And the energy in Chinese is called qi. And if it's blocked, then it will cause ailments. So when sticking the needle into the body, that will unblock the energy so your body can naturally heal itself.
I'd never done acupuncture before, so I was a little bit nervous about having needles stuck in me, but it was a really cool experience. It didn't hurt at all. He stuck a needle in both sides of my forearms because I told him that I had some minor problems with digestion when I was traveling. One of the things I noticed immediately was how relaxed I felt. He put this incense or this smoke around the needles and up my arms. I can feel my arms more relaxed. I don't know, I guess it's maybe a slight numbing, but more just relaxed.
That's normal.
Yeah.
To treat my digestion ailments, Dr. Yang put a needle right here on my knee. And he did so because everything in the body is connected. So if you have a blockage here, it can affect your body here. This acupuncture treatment is different than ones I've had in the past because I've never experienced the moxibustion smoke before. So it's interesting to have the sensation of the smoke as well as the needles in my body. It's new for me and I'm really enjoying it.
I definitely felt there was a change in my energy, a change in my mood, and after the acupuncture session, I felt very at ease. It was a really interesting experience. I'm definitely going to have to try it out again when I get back to the States.
After we had our acupuncture session, we got to go through the Chutang Gorge, which is the largest gorge. It's not only the widest, but it's also the deepest.
It was this incredible, massive rock that's been carved out of the Yangtze River.
The cliffs that we saw from the White Emperor City looked even bigger when we were going through them. They're straight vertical, up and down when you first enter the gorge.
The only thing I could compare it to would be something between the Grand Canyon and the Yosemite Park.
The only thing that I could compare it to in my mind was the Nepali coast on Kauai, but it's so different at the same time. And it's a totally awe-inspiring view. As we cruised through the gorge, we saw a lot of lush greenery. There was not much city life. The cliffs are too steep to really put any buildings or housing developments on. The sun was really bright at the time. It was really hot at this time during the day, and the sun was shining on the water in a way that turned the water a really deep bronze color.
The next thing we did was we got on a smaller cruise ship that took us through the small Three Gorges.
It wasn't quite as big, and the water isn't as deep there. There were some sheer cliffs, and when I was looking at them, they're orange and black, and it kind of looks like candle wax dripping down the walls, how the colors flow together.
We had a tour guide that got to explain some of the history. For one, there was this ancient culture called the Ba people, and they used to live in this region. You could see in the gorges, like way up on the cliffs, there were these coffins that were made out of wood, kind of tucked into the gorges. Most of them have been robbed because of the treasures that were inside. So a lot of the locals have now gone and taken a lot of them, but you can still see some of them as you travel through the Yangtze River. After going through the three small gorges, we got onto an even smaller boat,
which usually only holds about 30 to 40 people.
That took us through the mini Three Gorges.
The river got a lot smaller, the water became a lot greener. There was beautiful bright green algae layering the tops of the water.
Me and Audrey got to sit on the edge of the boat, and as we were traveling through this canal and just kind of enjoy the view from a totally different perspective. The captain is from a group called the Tuja minority, and I guess it's one of the biggest minorities in this region. And supposedly, the Tuja are the direct descendants of the Ba people.
The Ba people who lived in the region were known to sing in order to attract lovers. If you weren't able to sing, then you couldn't find a lover.
At one point, the captain actually sang for us, and he sang these native Tuja songs. The first song he sang was about love and how he missed his lover. And I could just imagine what it was like a really long time ago when the Ba people were singing these songs to each other. The second song he sang was about life on the river. So it was really cool to see the difference between seeing the first gorge to the small Three Gorges, and then to the mini gorges, because as we got into the gorges, we got more personal. First, seeing it from the cruise ship was very distant, and it was very magnificent. But then we got into a smaller boat, and it got a little bit more intimate as we started getting into more of a narrow passage. And then we got into an even smaller boat, and it was like going through almost like a canal. We could almost touch it.
after we traveled through the small gorge and the mini gorge, we traveled through the second gorge, the Wu Gorge, which was also incredibly beautiful. It's amazing to see all of the natural beauty that the Yangtze River has to offer. This morning we visited the Three Gorges Dam project, which is the largest hydroelectric facility in the entire world. It's the most impressive example of construction and architecture I've ever seen. If I could compare it to anything, it would be like the Panama Canal on steroids.
It was a pretty cool thing to see. We drove up to this platform called the Tan Ziling platform, and we looked out over the entire dam.
We visited the dam itself, which is 1.4 miles long, or 2.3 kilometers. When we observed it, it was shrouded in mist. You could see the front of it, which is all granite and concrete and is absolutely huge. We couldn't even see the other side, showing how big this dam actually is.
Between the time that it was built, between 1993 and 2009, 17 years, over 40,000 people worked on the project. They're still actually building a ship elevator that should be completed, I think, within the next year.
The ship elevator will carry ships up to 3,000 tons, and it will only take 47 minutes to pass through the dam. We also observed the locks, which we traveled through last night in this ship. There are 2 lanes to the locks, one going upstream and one going downstream. There are 5 sections to the lock, so essentially each is a different step. The ships will go into one lock, and if they're going upstream, the lock will fill with water and take them to the next level, eventually getting them to the other side of the river. They can carry usually 6 ships at a time, if the ships are about 3,000 tons each. Right now, ships traveling through the locks take about 3 to 4 hours to pass.
The Three Gorges Dam, it was built to do 3 things.
The first and most important is to control flooding.
That had occurred over the last 2,000 years.
So now that the dam is built, the water levels can be controlled, so flooding is not a threat at all anymore.
It also was built to provide energy.
Between 2 and 3% of all of the energy in China comes from this facility as hydroelectric power. This reduces the level of coal burning. Coal burning is the other main generator of power in China. So now that the Three Gorges Dam project has been completed, there is less pollution due to coal burning.
And the third thing that it was created for was for navigation, so that more ships could go along the river.
Before the dam was constructed, there were a lot of rocks and the river was much more shallow. Now that the water levels have risen, it's a lot easier to navigate ships.
Before the dam was built, you couldn't go from Shanghai to this particular region, and now ships are able to pass through quite easily.
Before the Three Gorges Dam project was complete, the water levels were much lower, so a lot of people lived near the banks of the river, and a lot of them were farmers. Because of the rising water levels, 1.3 million people had to move to higher grounds. Now, the Chinese government has constructed a lot of new and more modern housing facilities to house all of these people and that had to move up the river. So yeah, 1.3 million people were relocated because of this project. It's a little bit controversial, but a lot of the people believe that they have more modern living now, and instead of living on rural farms, they have electricity and plumbing.
So after seeing the dam, we got back onto the cruise ship, and right now we're going through the Shiling Gorge, which is the biggest gorge out of all 3 gorges. It's actually half the size of all 3 of the gorges combined.
It looks similar to the other gorges, though the mountains are a little bit smaller and the greenery comes all the way down to the water level. As you can see, it's misty and beautiful and so lush and so green.
I think this is probably my favorite gorge because it's not only extremely beautiful to look at, but the architecture and the little villages alongside of the river are gorgeous.
I saw traditional Chinese village that is new. It's been built in recent years, but it is traditional Chinese architecture. And it was so beautiful to see how it was laid into the rocks and kind of blended in with all of the greenery on the cliffs. It looked like it really belongs there. The Shieling Gorge is absolutely beautiful, and we've just been having such a great time, and we're gonna be so sad to get off the cruise ship.
Yesterday we got off the cruise ship and we got to Yichang.
This morning we woke up in Yichang and hopped in a bus and took a ride through one of the mountains surrounding the Yangtze River.
We went to the Shiling Gorge again, which I was really excited about because I'd seen a lot of the little villages and different buildings that had a really cool architecture to them when we were cruising down the Yangtze River yesterday.
We had amazing views of the Yangtze River. It was really good to look down on it since we've been on a cruise ship for the last couple days sailing through it. After the bus ride, we stopped in a small little village area.
Got onto a little ferry that took us across the river to this Ba village.
As we were on the boat ride, we noticed a lot of beautiful little villages inlaid into the side of the mountain. They were all different colors. Some of them were white and were right along the edge of the water. Perhaps the most interesting of all of the villages was this beautiful brown village laid into the side of the mountain.
It's really got this amazing architecture. It's like this dark brown wood with these really intricate tiled roofs.
It looked like it was fashioned in the ancient Chinese architectural, where the edges of each of the roofs were turned up. The building was made of wood and was on a stone foundation. It really looked like it blended into the mountainside when we were on the boat. After our boat ride, we stopped at this beautiful village. As we came up to the village, we saw these really ancient-looking sailboats. They were made out of bamboo on the bottom, and each of them had one sail that looked like it was fashioned out of some sort of fabric. As we stepped off the boat into the village,
we walked up this really long staircase and it brought us to this little Ba village, and there was this seating area, kind of like the old Greek performance centers. In front of us on the stage were these performances, and they were traditional Ba culture performances. The first one I remember was women. They were doing this drum dance. So they were banging on the drums while they were doing this dancing at the same time.
Another one which was really interesting and amazing is when a man in a mask came down the stairs around the outdoor theater.
He had this devil face mask.
He came down and started dancing and flailing his arms.
Supposedly it was to expel evil spirits, but he also was performing a dance that the ancient Ba people would use when they had enemies coming. So they would dance in order to frighten their enemies away. And at one point in the crowd, a little boy actually started crying. So it obviously works.
My favorite one was a man blowing fire out of his mouth everywhere.
Then he even got to this point where he was rolling the sticks across his arms so that the fire was touching his arms. It was pretty painful looking, but I don't know how he's developed any kind of tolerance to that, but somehow he's managed to do it.
The performer actually took the flames and touched his tongue with it. Right after he did that, he ran up onto stage and took the fire staff and actually put it onto his mouth and balanced it. It was really, really crazy. After we saw these traditional performances, we took another short walk and went into an indoor theater,
where we got to listen to classical Chinese music that is over 2,500 years old.
They were playing all different sorts of instruments, none of which I recognized. There were woodwind instruments, string instruments, bells.
The music itself was, I mean, at times I could feel like the hair on my arm kind of start to stick up because it was so beautiful. I can't believe that they had it 2,500 years ago. It just goes to show how incredible these people are and how far back their history goes. And after the performance, Audrey and I got to go back and hit some of the bells with some of the tools.
They gave us these little wooden hammers and let us play the different bells. The bells were made out of copper, and depending on the size and the shape of the bell, they would make different noises.
And then finally, after the classical Chinese music performance, we went back towards this little stream that comes out into the Yangtze. There's this little dam that you walk across, which has these like parallel stones that you can step across to get to the other side.
When we were walking along the edge of the Yangtze River on a wooden plank bridge, the river was a deep olive green.
There was a lot of performers or actors that were dressed in the traditional Ba garments, and I believe there were also a lot of Tuja garments as well.
And came upon this beautiful emerald inlet, and it feeds into the Yangtze River down that way. As you can probably see, it's surrounded by enormous bamboo forests, and it just gives it a really mystical and magical feeling.
We went all the way up to this like stream area where you can see the waterfall.
We also saw some beautiful ducks sitting on the river and some women with beautiful fabric hung behind them. Probably one of my favorite parts of the day, just because I'm such an animal lover, is when we got to spend some time with the wild macaca monkeys.
And I've seen monkeys in zoos, but I've never really gotten very close with them, and there's no guardrail or barrier between us and the monkeys.
They were very social and very hungry. We got little sacks of peanuts and we got to feed them. One of the macaca monkeys came right up to me, jumped in my lap, and started grabbing the peanuts out of my hand.
And then at the end, I only had like a few peanuts left, so I took out the whole bag, and one of the monkeys just grabbed the bag and then ran up to one of the rocks again.
It was really cute to listen to them make all of their different little monkey noises and run around and climb up the little thatch house, and we could see them way up in the trees too. Some of them were grooming each other. Some of them were playing. It was a really, really great experience.
Today we left Yichang and we took a 4-hour drive from Yichang to Badong County. It was really rainy the whole way through.
At the beginning of the drive, the roads were really straight and easy to drive on, and we went really fast and went through a lot of tunnels.
And we arrived at the city center in Badong County, and we went to this traditional Tuja restaurant.
Right when we got to the restaurant, we got to go inside the kitchen.
There were lots of major stoves on one hand side, and then on the other side were all like the fresh produce that the chef Tan gets from a local farm where they get all of their produce.
There were different little sections of spices and herbs and gelatinous blood and all different kinds of peppers, pickled vegetables. We got to watch the chef make these 3 different dishes.
The first one was this pork bone and beef dish.
Made with a lot of radishes, and there were 2 different parts to the dish.
So he started off by frying these pork bones in this like big, huge iron wok. And after he cooked them for a little while, he placed the bone in the separate compartments on this silver dish.
One of the sides of the dish was a dark red sauce that he used a lot of peppers and a lot of garlic, and it was really spicy. And it contained thin beef slices. Another one of the dishes he made was a fried koi fish.
This koi fish, which had been sliced in half and then laid flat, so it looked like you almost had 2 fishes or 2 heads.
And he put it into the wok and threw the fish in and fried it up.
And then he laid it over these red onions and then topped it off with all these like red peppers again, green peppers. There were pickled radishes in there and garlic. And then lastly, he made us this really traditional Tuja potato dish. And supposedly this is like the signature dish at this restaurant because you can't get these potatoes anywhere else in the world.
The potatoes had been cooked for 20 minutes before they were fried when we saw him fry them. So he fried them first and then
he mixed in all these different peppers and like dried red peppers with them. And it made them like really crispy on the outside and soft in the middle.
这道菜叫萝卜炖童子骨，还有这个叫萝卜炖牛肉，都是我们采自海拔1800米的高地上面的萝卜蔬菜基地。
Oh wow. The radish is really soft. I expected it to be more crispy and bitter, but it's really soft and it's really mild. You can definitely taste the flavors from the broth that it's in. It's not too spicy though. Let's see.
Definitely taste the pork juices have gotten into the radish. It definitely does not taste like the radishes I'm used to.
No.
Yeah, I expected it to be spicy and bitter, but it's actually not spicy at all.
Wait till you try the beef. It's nice, meaty, kind of gamey. Also like a lot of the same flavors that the radish have in it. Not too spicy at all.
Finally got a bite of the pork from the bone. It's really good.
Oh,
it just
gotta
melts
try
in your
that.
mouth. It feels like it's been cooked for a really, really long time. Okay, I'm gonna eat a piece of beef with the chili on it and see if I can handle the flavor. It's really rich and spicy. Whoa, really spicy. And you can definitely taste the peppercorns in it too. So good. It's nice to have these 2 dishes next to each other because that one is so mild, whereas this one is a little bit more spicy.
Yeah,
so
the
good
yin
combination.
and the yang.
Yeah, totally.
这个菜是我们采自长江里面的本土的鲤鱼。
Oh my gosh. So flavorful. You can really taste the garlic in it. So good. It's a lot more meaty than I expected too. For some reason I always thought koi fish would be like bony and not that fleshy, but there's a lot of really good, it's like a white meat. It's very, very simple so all the spices can come through. Really, really good. Wow.
Yeah, super meaty and super like not too fishy. It's very mild, meaty texture, tender. I really like the crispiness of the skin.
这道菜是我们当地的土产，叫土豆。我们这边的土豆也是产自高山地区的。
So good, really, really rich. You can tell that it's been fried for a long time, which makes me happy. The outside of the skin is a little bit crispy and a little bit spicy, and the inside of the potato is richer than most potatoes I've had in the past.
The crispiness on the potato reminds me almost of like a French fry and a mashed potato mixed together. The spices that they used when they were frying the potatoes definitely can be tasted in here. You've got this nice kind of spicy pepper taste. The potato itself is really creamy and smooth and soft. I think like this would definitely be something like Americans would love because we eat a lot of potatoes and yeah.
Yeah, our chef was telling us that these have a higher protein content than other potatoes too, and I feel like you can really taste that in them. They taste very hearty.
Today we left Badong County
And hopped on a ferry and cruised through the Shiling Gorge.
It was a lot narrower than the other gorges we went through. And on the gorge's walls, there were these Chinese characters with painted in red, which was really neat.
We passed by a hanging coffin in the side of the canyons.
There was one of the gorges that looked like an elephant. And it was this huge rock that shot up from the water.
All of the different canyons are supposed to look like different animals or different people. This enables the locals to navigate where they are on the river.
We went through the Shielding Gorge. Then we went through the Shielding stream and arrived at this little village or town. And one of the things that was really nice about this particular trip was it's been raining a lot, so it's much clearer out, and you can see this like beautiful mist that's in the mountains that's just kind of hanging along the mountainsides.
Once we got off of our boat, we entered a local village and we got to watch one of the local villagers named Mr. Tan make these awesome, beautiful, intricate sandals for us. He was sitting at a small wooden loom which had different pegs coming out of it. He had a belt made out of sticks where the end of the sandal would attach to the belt so he could get a little bit of leverage when he was weaving the grass through the different looms.
And we got to watch him make our sandals and sing these
Traditional Tuja songs to us. They were really, really beautiful, and the best part is that we got to follow along and try to learn some of the songs. I don't think I was getting any of the words right, but I tried my hardest.
Afterwards, he allowed us to choose our own individual pair of sandals made out of nylon. Supposedly, these people wear these shoes every single day for 6 months. And that's considering how often these shoes are used by these people. I mean, I see them wading in the water here. I see them climbing up these steps and mountainsides. I actually chose not to wear mine around after he made them because I wanted to keep them clean and preserved.
We learned that for each pair of sandals, it takes a half day to make them. So it's a lot of work that goes into making these. I love them. They're really beautiful, really intricate, and best of all, really, really comfy.
The model shoes. Afterwards, Mr. Tan actually took us out on a boat.
We hopped on a really small wooden boat. It was covered with a tarp to protect us from the rain.
And Mr. Tan and a few other guys used oars to take us across the reservoir. And then they showed us the
Ancient art of boat pulling.
where they pull boats with ropes.
In this region, parts of the river were only a foot deep, so the locals had to tie ropes to the boats to pull them across the river. They threw the ropes over their backs and climbed over this hillside and took us along the river.
I could only imagine what it used to look like when they were basically nude, pulling people through these more shallow waters with lots of rocks and more of a tumultuous current.
Today, this tradition is dying out since boats can pass easier across the water. Today is our last day of this trip, and I'm feeling really, really sad about it. I feel like I could probably stay here for another month and keep experiencing the beauty of the Yangtze River.
China's huge, and I feel like I just got to see one really small part of the country.
We did so many fun things. Probably the thing that stood out the most for me is when we went into the mini gorge and listened to the traditional Tuja songs echoing through the canyons. It was such a beautiful experience, and I know I'll never forget it.
I know I really liked going up to the Taoist temple in Chongqing and overlooking that major city.
I also loved going to the Dazu rock carvings. It was amazing to see such beautiful and intricate works of art that dated back all the way to the 9th century.
Seeing an orchestra from classical China 2,500 years ago, and then seeing something super modern like the Three Gorges Dam in comparison, it just goes to show what we're capable of.
Traveling to China has shown me just how different cultures can be, and it's really expanded my perspective on the entire world and shown me the vastness of all the many different cultures there are. So it's been so great to see that, and it's been very life-changing.